Thank you so much for being here. My name is Daria, and I am so thrilled, just so thrilled to be here today, to play music for you today. It's quite a special day for me, just personally, because this is the first time that I get the opportunity to play music for a live audience since the start of the pandemic. So, yes, a lot of feelings. I would like to start us off with a short piece of music, which is not on the program. I will tell you what it is afterwards, but because I had planned this anyway, because a lot has happened in the last 2 years. I'm sure everyone in this room has experienced things that we should not have to experience, and with the news from yesterday, it just doesn't feel right not to acknowledge what's happening. And so this next piece of music is, that's for that reason I will play you this piece of music. Thank you. That was the Sarabande in D minor, which is a movement from the D minor cello suite by Johann Sebastian Bach, who also wrote the suite which I will be playing you in a few minutes, the C major suite. But first I would like to tell you a little bit about Bach himself, about what a suite actually is, and why I chose specifically the C major suite for today. Let's start with Bach. Johann Sebastian Bach was born in 1685 in Germany, and as such was very German and very Protestant. At that time, if you were a composer, you were employed either by the church or by a royal court. Bach chose the former, and so today we mostly know him for his big religious works, but he also wrote a number of pieces for, at the time, sort of the precursor of the piano. I'm sure if you were to hear one of the piano pieces, you would recognize it instantly. And he also wrote 6 suites for violoncello solo. Or did he? So there is a theory that these cello suites, as well as a few other pieces, were written by his second wife, Anna Magdalena, who was a prolific musician in her own right. She was a professional singer, and she performed alongside her husband many, many times. The only manuscripts that exist to this day of these cello suites are in Anna Magdalena's handwriting. Johann Sebastian Bach's manuscripts, no idea where they are, if they ever existed. Who knows? So the sort of general consensus among scholars, with a capital S, is that Anna Magdalena was copying her husband's manuscripts to get them all nice and clean and ready for print. However, they do also go to great lengths to point out how many mistakes she made while copying the music. So, what if that isn't true? What if, in fact, these manuscripts are the originals and it was Anna Magdalena who wrote the pieces? It isn't unheard of that when women composed music that they would then publish it under a male pseudonym or under the name of a male relative. That happened, for example, with Felix Mendelssohn Bartholdy's sister, Fanny. And also there are several other examples of that in music history. We will never know. It's too long ago. We have no clue. But the reason why I like to bring this up is that usually the reaction to this theory is either, well, she had to look after 10 children, there is no way she would have had any time to compose anything, or my favorite argument is, these pieces are clearly written by Johann Sebastian Bach because he was a genius, nobody else could have written them. And I'm sorry, but that does not cut it, in my opinion. We all know that women can accomplish amazing things, and who says that composing didn't come very easily to her? Who says she didn't pop out these pieces of music like she popped out 13 entire children? We all know that we get loads of things done while we also look after the household, right? And who says that she didn't have a very similar composing style to her husband, whose music she would have heard day in, day out? So while we may never know the truth, my point is that we need to examine our reactions to these theories. So I would like to ask you that maybe while you're listening, you do ask yourselves, what if the music that you just heard and that you are about to hear was written by a woman? Would that change anything for you? Something to keep in mind. But whatever your answer may end up being, I do hope that you enjoy what I'm about to play for you regardless. As I said, this is my first time performing since the pandemic, so that was a long period of isolation, of asking myself, did I really do the right thing with my life, studying music? Is that what I want to do with the rest of my life? And yes, music is my thing. Now more than ever, I feel this way. And that is why I chose the C major cello suite to play for you today. Because to me, C major is the key that most expresses this joy of life and this joy of music making. It's a very exuberant and energetic key. It kind of gives, as I said, joy of life. It gives the deep breath of fresh air, of new beginnings and of determination. And it also just sounds really great when we play it on the cello, because our deepest string is the C string. So we get loads of amazing resonance, which is going to sound even better in this wonderful room. And another thing that, and this is also really important specifically for playing Bach's music, because his music relies on harmony rather than melody. So that means that the tension in the music comes almost entirely from modulations and the relationships between different keys and different chords and those key changes. So in fact, you would really struggle to sing any of what I'm about to play for you, because it doesn't all happen sort of on a horizontal. The music happens vertically. It's going to make sense when I play it, hopefully. I have to make sure that I play it properly so that it makes sense. But there are a lot of layers. There's a lot of voices at different levels going on. So hopefully now that you know to listen out for this, it's going to actually be easier to hear that difference and to make sense of what you're hearing. And as I said, it's also my job to make that very clear. Finally, I'm going to take you through the rough structure of what a suite actually is, because maybe you've never actually heard of a suite before. So a suite for an instrument or as a musical piece is a collection of dance pieces, all written in the same musical key. So that's C major in this case. So yes, that means each of the movements of this suite could technically be danced to if you were well versed in 18th century court dancing. The only movement that is not a dance is the prelude at the very beginning. This is the movement which is meant to introduce the key of this entire suite, and preludes are meant to be to feel free, to feel very improvised. So that means they are perfect for really getting the character of a key really just right. And as I mentioned earlier, the C major suite, the C major is a key full of energy and of confidence and of joy, and it really shows in this prelude. So out of the 6 suites, this prelude is the only one that starts with a scale going downwards. I'm actually going to demonstrate that very quickly. So this is the start of the C major suite. So we just have that rushing in, which is really lovely. And all the other suites start either with just a chord or an arpeggio, which is just a broken up chord. So the G major starts like, and so on, and then so that is again a broken chord at the beginning, or then the fourth is, doesn't get more broken up in a chord than this. The fifth suite is just this very dark C minor beginning, and then the sixth suite, which is just gorgeous, is. Haven't played it in a long time, but yeah, that is, so you can really tell that difference. It is a very different feeling when you start with this spaced out chord. And then the third suite is just, let's get right into it. And that is how that prelude continues. It's very free, very flowing. I've written in it in a part which is my absolute favorite part, just fly. with a heart, because it just builds up to this amazing kind of breakdown in G major. You will absolutely hear it when I get to it. It's very, very clear. And then it just sort of, flows. It flows in and out of the room, which is, I love it. Then we get to the more structured movements, the dances, and those really are very set in their structure. So that is why it's important to introduce the character of the key, because in the other movements there isn't really much of an opportunity to do that. So speaking of rigid and set structures, the movement that follows after the prelude is an allemande, which used to be a stately dance from Germany. It's written in a straight 4/4 beat and should be played slowly enough to give you a nice measured pace, like so. You will hopefully hear this. Next we have a dance which is quite the opposite, the courante, a French dance in a quick 3-beat, which I will not try to demonstrate, but suffice it to say that it lives up to its name, which can roughly be translated as running. After that, we have just my absolute favorite of all suite movements in any key. It's the Sarabande, which is what I just played you, the Sarabande in D minor. So this is quite interesting. The dance is originally from South America, possibly from Mexico, and in its very original form, it's a very alluring and sexual dance. However, this being 18th century Protestant Germany, none of that. In this version, it's a slow and very regal sounding movement, though it does retain a very distinct characteristic of its origins, which is that in a 3-beat bar, when normally you would emphasize the first beat, so say in a waltz it's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. In a sarabande, the emphasis is on the second beat, so it's 1, 2, 3, which is very distinct. We don't really have that in any other piece of music. So I hope you will listen out for that when it comes to the sarabande in C major in this suite. After that, we move on to a little breather, which is a pair of bourrées. So yes, this is a movement where you literally get 2 for the price of 1. The first bourrée is written in the major key, so in this case C major, and the second bourrée is written in minor. And you can really hear the difference in those, in the major and minor. The first one is very chipper, cheerful, whereas the second one, the C minor, is much softer and definitely much sadder, but also very, very lovely. And then finally, the suite ends with a raucous jig, which, yes, is the very Irish or Scottish, or whichever you prefer, jig. So this is as the name suggests, it's a very energetic movement with a lot of unexpected humor, actually, and it's the perfect way to just wrap up the whole piece. And that's it. All that remains for me to say now is that I really hope you enjoy listening and, yeah, enjoy this C major cello suite. Thank you.